Our book today is a picture book of Lewis and Clark by David A. Adler, illustrated by Ronald Himmler. On May 14th, 1804, more than 30 American explorers began a journey into the unknown, into a land of mystery. They went west of the Mississippi River, where some people said woolly mammoths still roamed. What are woolly mammoths? They were the Corps of Discovery, led by Captains Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Captain Meriwether Lewis was born on August 18th, 1774, in Albemarle County, Virginia. His parents were William Lewis, a wealthy plantation owner, and Lucy Meriwether Lewis. He was the second of their three children. What is a plantation? Think about that for a moment. Those are good ideas. Think of a plantation as someone's home, a place where many people live and work, where they raise crops to help support that. In 1779, when Meriwether was just 5, his father died. His mother married again, this time to Captain John Marks. In 1782, the family moved to the Georgia frontier, where Meriwether learned to live in the wilderness. When he was just 13, Meriwether returned to Virginia to help manage his family's plantation and to go to school. At the age of 20, he joined the Virginia militia and then the regular army. Meriwether expected to remain a soldier, but in 1801 a Virginian neighbor wrote and asked him to be his secretary. "You would be one of my family," he said. The neighbor was Thomas Jefferson. Who was Thomas Jefferson? What role did he have in our history? That's right. Thomas Jefferson was a president of the United States, and at the time he was the newly elected president of the United States. Meriwether took the job. As the president's secretary, he lived in the White House. Can somebody tell me where the White House is located? Good, that's right. In 1802, he and Jefferson began secret plans to explore the land beyond the western border of the United States. They hoped to find a water route across America, a Northwest Passage. Congress approved this mission, and Jefferson appointed Lewis to lead it. The object of your mission, President Jefferson wrote to Lewis, is to explore the Missouri River and the water offering the best communication with the Pacific Ocean. What other ocean do we have on our eastern border? We have the Pacific Ocean to our west, and to the east is the ocean that is called, yes, the Atlantic Ocean. Jefferson also wanted to know about the land, weather, plants, animals in that area. He instructed Lewis to let the American Indians know of our wish to be neighborly, friendly, and useful to them. When the mission was planned, the land just west of the Mississippi River belonged to France. By the time it began, it belonged to the United States. On April 30th, 1803, American agents sent to France by Jefferson bought the Louisiana Territory for the United States. The territory included all or parts of 15 future states. It doubled the size of the United States. So think about that. Today we have 50 states. At the time, there were not 50, and this Louisiana Purchase or territory helped to double the size of our country. Lewis traveled first to Philadelphia and then to Pittsburgh to prepare for the trip. Where is Pittsburgh? Right, that is near us. He bought arms, ammunition, instruments, supplies, and gifts for the American Indians. He had a large keel boat built and also brought two smaller boats to carry all of the supplies they would need. In June 1803, Captain Lewis wrote to Captain William Clark, an officer he had met during his service in the Army. Lewis liked and respected Clark and asked him to help lead the expedition. "I do assure you," Clark wrote back, "that no man lives with whom I would prefer to undertake such a trip." William Clark was born on August 1st, 1770, in Caroline County, Virginia. His parents were John and Anne Rogers Clark. William was the ninth of their 10 children, the youngest of 6 sons. When William Clark was just 14, his family moved to the American frontier to Kentucky. There he learned to hunt, fish, camp, and find his way in the wilderness. When Clark was 19, he joined the Army, where he learned to build forts, draw maps, and fight. In mid-October 1803, Lewis and Clark met on the north bank of the Ohio River in Clarksville, Indiana Territory to prepare for their journey. They assembled men. Among them were Clark's slave, York. What is a slave? What role do you think this person had during this trip? Good. Rivermen and soldiers were also among the men assembled. They also took along Lewis's Newfoundland dog, Seaman. They spent the winter of 1803 to 1804 near St. Louis, Missouri, in a camp by the Mississippi River. The Corps got underway on May 14, 1804. Under a gentle breeze, Clark wrote in his journal, they sailed across the Mississippi River and up the Missouri. There, their journey across the American continent and back would take 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days. The Corps sailed up the Missouri until late October 1804, then in present-day North Dakota. What do they mean by present day? We have our past, where things have happened. We have the present, where things are happening now, and then the future, which will happen. Right, so present day North Dakota means today in North Dakota. They cut down trees and built Fort Mandan. They spent the cold, bitter winter of 1804 to 1805 there among the friendly Mandan tribe. During the winter, Toussaint and Carbonet joined the Corps as an interpreter. His American Indian wife, Sacagawea, and their baby joined too. Where have we heard that name Sacagawea before? What role do you think she had on this trip with Lewis and Clark as they went into the wilderness in the western part of the United States? Good. Those are some good ideas and great suggestions. Let's continue to read and find out what her role was in this story with Lewis and Clark. Sacagawea became an important member of the expedition. When American Indians along the way saw her, they pointed, Clark wrote. She confirmed those people of our friendly intentions, for they knew no woman ever accompanies a war party, especially not a woman with her baby. So let's think back to what my question was about Sacagawea and her role on this expedition. She helped to ensure that the friendly intentions of Lewis and Clark were known to those that they encountered on their journey across the United States. By early spring, the frozen Missouri River began to melt. Lewis and Clark sent the large keel boat back to St. Louis with some of their men and with reports, along with boxes of animals, skins, plants, stuffed birds, and snakes, all things that they had encountered on their trip across the United States. Set off again on April 7th, 1805. They met many American Indian tribes and their chiefs. Lewis and Clark spoke with them and distributed gifts and peace tokens. Lewis and Clark and their team saw the unspoiled beauty of the American frontier. Lewis wrote of a most beautiful and extensive plain, where immense herds of buffalo are feeding. What are buffalo? Where might you see a buffalo today? Are they small animals or are they really large animals? Think about a buffalo and what could we compare it to? Is there another animal that's common today that we could compare a buffalo to? Good. Very good. Clark wrote of the many flowers they saw. Nature appears to have exerted herself to beautify the scenery. There were dangers, too, the men wrote of snake bites and troublesome mosquitoes, and a large gnat which does not sting but attacks the eye in swarms, and compels us to brush them off or have our eyes filled with them. In May 1805, 6 of the men encountered a grizzly bear. This monster ran at them with mouth open in his throat. The men fired their rifles, but that didn't stop the grizzly. 2 men threw their guns down and jumped into the river. The bear plunged into the river only a few feet behind the second man. At last, Lewis wrote, one of those who still remained on the shore shot the bear and finally killed him. The explorers suffered from the weather too. The first winter, Lewis recorded the temperature at 45 degrees below zero. In November 1805, Clark wrote of a storm that did not cease. Think about that temperature, 45 degrees below zero. What are some things that these men might have encountered? And there was triumph. In August, they reached the Continental Divide. Who can tell me what the Continental Divide is? Right. Good. That is the Continental Divide. On one side of the divide, the rivers flowed east to the Atlantic Ocean. And earlier we talked about the Atlantic Ocean when I asked what ocean was to our east. On the other side, they flowed, the rivers, that is, to the west and into the Pacific. Oh, the joy, Clark wrote in November 1805. They were close to the west coast of the continent. By mid-November 1805, the Corps reached the Pacific Ocean. Shortly after that, members of the Corps voted on where to build their winter camp. Among those who voted were Clark's slaves York and Sacagawea, long before blacks and women voted in the United States elections. They built their camp a few miles from the ocean near present-day Astoria, Oregon, and called it Fort Clatsop, after the local tribe. And if we remember, when we were talking about the past, present, and future, present day means where you can find that location today. And again, that is in Astoria, Oregon. The Explorer had crossed the American continent. With the coming of spring, it was time to go home. On March 23rd, 1806, they began their journey east. In early July, Lewis and 3 men separated from the others to explore a different route up the Maris River. While they camped, some of the Blackfoot tribe stole their rifles, and then there was a fight. 2 of the tribe were killed, and peace between them and the white men was shattered. Later, there was a shooting. One of the men was hunting meat and shot what he thought was an elk or perhaps a bear. But it was Lewis. He shot him in his rear, and for weeks after that, Lewis had difficulty walking. In mid-August, Lewis and his men rejoined Clark and the rest of the Corps. On September 23rd, 1806, they reached St. Louis. "It is with pleasure," Lewis wrote to Jefferson, "I announce to you the safe arrival of myself and party." The President replied, "I received, my dear sir, with unspeakable joy your letter of September 23rd. After thousands of miles of travel by water, horseback, and on foot, they have returned. They hadn't found woolly mammoths or a northwest passage, but they did come back with plant, rock, and animal specimens new to American scientists. They returned, too, with reports on many of the nation's American Indian neighbors." In December, President Jefferson wrote to Congress that the Corps of Discovery had all the success which could have been expected. Lewis and Clark and their brave companions have, by this arduous service, deserved well of their country. Congress awarded the men of the expedition double pay. After their return, Lewis and Clark separated. Lewis was made governor of the Louisiana Territory. Clark was made agent general for Indian affairs for Louisiana and governor of the Missouri Territory. Meriwether Lewis was upset by financial troubles and on October 11th, 1809, was found dead of gunshot wounds. He was either killed by a robber or by his own hand. William Clark married twice and had 7 children. In 1838, he died in the St. Louis home of his eldest son, Meriwether Lewis Clark, named after his trusted colleague. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark were American pioneers. They opened the West to the new nation.